Watch the systems sustaining modern life closely enough, the stress fractures become visible. The sequential failure of these power grids follows a predictable mathematical trajectory. This chart tracks the MIT limits to growth model. Look at the black line representing industrial output. The data projects a steep, irreversible drop-off precisely within the yellow band, marking the year 2040. Over a millennium ago, Islamic eschatology mapped this exact period. These ancient records document the coming collapse as a deliberate sequence of events, known as the era of trials. Secular analysis warns of an approaching ecological and industrial breakdown. The prophetic lens defines this exact threshold as a deliberate, divine sifting of humanity. By the 2030s, the baseline condition of global geopolitics is a state of constant, high-stakes tension. Daily life continues under the shadow of artificial intelligence expansion, aggressive cyber warfare, and the quiet repositioning of nuclear assets. The prophetic tradition identifies this state as Guta. It refers to the froth carried on the surface of a floodwater, describing a society that is massive in population, but entirely lacking in gravity, cohesion, or moral weight. The texts trace this fragility to an internal disease called wan. It is a state defined by a paralyzing addiction to material comfort, a deep love for the temporary world, and an intense fear of death. Systemic collapse arrives because the human systems managing these geopolitical megathreats have become hollow. They are attempting to navigate lethal global risks while heavily sedated by material excess. The Prophet Muhammad described these terminal trials as a rapid, irreversible sequence. He compared them to beads falling consecutively from a broken necklace. Once the string is cut, each event directly causes the next. This chart breaks down the sequence. The first major bead is Fitnat al-Akhlas, a trial of fear, plunder, and forced displacement. This shifts into Fitnat al-Sira, where violence becomes insidious, defined by widespread espionage, state paranoia, and material comfort. This opening phase of destabilization strips away the illusion of safety, leaving behind violated property and a complete breakdown of civic order. This chain reaction is highly methodical. It utilizes open warfare to break communities physically, and then weaponizes comfort and surveillance to break them psychologically, softening the global population for the catalyst that follows. Both empirical and prophetic timelines converge on a single geographic flashpoint. The drying of the Euphrates River serves as the ecological trigger that sets the systemic collapse in motion. Modern climatology tracks this water loss through measurable inputs. Heavy upstream dam construction, severe regional temperature spikes, and broader climate patterns have reduced massive sections of the river to parched earth. As the water recedes, eschatological texts warn that it uncovers a critical resource, a mountain of gold. The resulting conflict over this wealth triggers a massive resource war, resulting in the death of 99 out of every 100 combatants. Secular historians will record a climate-induced conflict over water and fossil fuels. The prophetic lens recognizes this identical event as the irreversible spark that ignites the final collapse of 2040. This brings us to the final bead in the sequence, Fitnat al-Duhaima. The texts describe it as the Great Dark Trial, a catastrophic event that catches the world off guard and forcefully enters every home on Earth. The primary symptom of Duhaima is absolute epistemic darkness. It creates an environment where baseline reality is heavily contested, human attention is constantly hijacked, and a state of permanent crisis becomes the air people breathe. Under this level of psychological strain, inner convictions fracture rapidly. The prophetic texts warn that the pressure will be so intense, a person will wake up as a believer in the morning and sell their faith away by the evening. This diagram illustrates how Duhaima functions as a massive funnel. It strips away the comfortable ambiguities of modern life, relentlessly sifting humanity until every person is forced into one of two absolute camps, pure faith or pure hypocrisy. The 2040 global breakdown acts as a mechanism for total exposure, a systemic failure designed to reveal the moral reality residing inside every human heart. When you scale down from the geopolitical models and global death tolls, you arrive at the individual. You have to ask how a single human mind and spirit can endure this amount of concentrated pressure. Survival begins with cultivating a mindset known as gurba, or principled estrangement. A person must stop expecting reassurance from a decaying culture, learning to derive their identity from the truth rather than seeking validation from the crowd. As the external environment descends into mass agitation and violent outrage, the individual must practice strict restraint and intensify their private devotion. The inner life must become denser as the outer world becomes louder. Maintaining this stance will not feel sweet or inspiring. Practicing belief under these conditions requires painful patience and a disciplined, jaw-clenched tenacity. The Prophet Muhammad provided an explicit description for this psychological state. He stated that the inner experience of holding on to faith in this era would feel like gripping a burning ember in your bare hand. Ultimately, the models and the prophecies point to the same endpoint. Surviving the convergence of 2040 relies on the quiet, steadfast preservation of God consciousness in the absolute dark.